The European Union is currently at a crossroads, grappling with challenges that go far beyond the headlines of political turmoil and economic uncertainty. What we're witnessing today is not just a series of isolated crises, but the result of deep-seated structural problems that have built up over decades. From sluggish economic growth to rising political instability in key member states like France, the EU's troubles are the culmination of long-standing divisions and policy choices. Understanding how Europe reached this point is essential to making sense of the current chaos and what it could mean for the future of the continent. France has been at the center of political upheaval, cycling through 4 prime ministers in just 1 year. This rapid turnover highlights deep divisions and uncertainty within the country's leadership. The instability isn't limited to France. It's part of a broader trend affecting the entire European Union, where governments are struggling to maintain public trust and navigate complex challenges. As confidence in national institutions declines, the political landscape becomes increasingly unpredictable. These shifts are shaping the future of European politics in ways that are difficult to forecast. The European Union's current troubles didn't appear overnight. They're the outcome of years, if not decades, of economic missteps, persistent divisions among member states, and unresolved structural flaws. Instead of investing in innovation and growth, the EU often prioritized austerity and budget balancing, which stifled productivity and left economies vulnerable. These long-standing issues have gradually eroded public trust and made it harder for the bloc to respond effectively to new challenges. Today's crisis is, in many ways, the culmination of these unresolved problems finally coming to a head. After the 2008 financial crisis, Europe faced a crucial decision. Unlike the United States and China, which pumped money into their economies to spark recovery, European leaders chose austerity, focusing on cutting deficits and balancing budgets. This approach, driven largely by Germany's fiscal discipline, meant less investment in growth and innovation. Over time, the impact became clear. Europe's share of global GDP shrank, productivity stalled, and the continent struggled to keep up with its more dynamic competitors. The choice for austerity set the stage for years of economic stagnation and lingering structural challenges. Europe's role on the world stage has been steadily diminishing, as shown by the EU's shrinking share of global GDP. Once accounting for a significant portion of the world economy, the EU now finds itself falling behind major competitors like the United States and China. This decline isn't just about numbers. It highlights deeper issues with productivity, innovation, and investment across the continent. As other regions surge ahead, Europe faces the challenge of reinventing itself to remain relevant in a rapidly changing global landscape. Europe is currently facing significant challenges when it comes to productivity and innovation. Over the past decade, productivity growth has largely flatlined, making it difficult for the region to keep pace with global competitors. Innovation has also slowed, with fewer breakthrough companies emerging and many promising startups relocating elsewhere. Compounding these issues is an aging population, which means there are fewer young workers to support economic growth and sustain social welfare systems. Together, these factors are putting considerable pressure on Europe's long-term economic prospects. Europe has seen a steady exodus of its most promising startups, with many relocating to markets where scaling is easier and investment is more abundant. Private sector spending on research and development remains well below that of global leaders like the United States, making it harder for European companies to innovate and compete. This gap is reflected in the age of major European firms, most of which have been around for nearly a century, while newer high-value companies are rare. As a result, both talent and capital often flow to regions with friendlier business environments, leaving Europe struggling to keep pace in the global innovation race. Europe's complex web of regulations and soaring energy prices are making it increasingly difficult for businesses and individuals to thrive. Many companies find themselves bogged down by bureaucratic hurdles, while high energy costs are eroding their competitiveness, especially in industries like manufacturing. As a result, both talent and investment are flowing to regions with friendlier business environments and more affordable energy. This trend is contributing to a brain drain and weakening Europe's position in the global economy. Addressing these challenges is crucial if Europe hopes to reverse the tide and attract innovation back to the continent. Germany's choice to decommission its remaining nuclear power plants came at a particularly tough moment, just as Russian gas supplies were cut off. This move hit the country's heavy industry hard, leading to a sharp rise in energy prices and making entire sectors less competitive almost overnight. The ripple effects were felt across the European Union, as higher energy costs strained businesses and households alike. Many critics argue that this policy decision worsened the energy crisis, leaving Europe searching for new solutions to secure affordable and reliable power. Europe is currently facing significant labor and migration challenges. Many highly educated and skilled workers are leaving the continent in search of better opportunities abroad, particularly in countries like the United States and the United Kingdom. At the same time, the influx of lower-skilled migrants is increasing the strain on already stretched welfare systems. This dynamic not only impacts economic growth, but also raises concerns about the sustainability of social support structures. As a result, European leaders are under pressure to find solutions that can retain talent and manage migration more effectively. Nearly 100 million Europeans now face the risk of falling into poverty, a stark indicator of the continent's deepening economic challenges. This growing vulnerability is not just a statistic. It reflects real struggles for families coping with rising living costs and shrinking opportunities. As economic growth slows and public services come under strain, more people find themselves on the edge, uncertain about their financial future. The social impact of this decline is profound, fueling frustration and eroding trust in traditional institutions across Europe. As Europe's economic struggles deepen, frustration among citizens has grown noticeably. Many people feel left behind by stagnant growth and rising living costs, which has eroded trust in traditional political leaders. This widespread disillusionment has opened the door for populist and far-right parties who promise simple solutions to complex problems. As a result, these groups have seen a significant rise in support across several countries, reshaping the political landscape and challenging the established order. Across Europe, controversial policies, especially those related to green initiatives, have sparked widespread public dissatisfaction. Many citizens feel that measures like mandatory home heating upgrades are costly and out of touch with everyday realities. At the same time, recurring reports of corruption and scandals among EU lawmakers have further undermined trust in political institutions. This combination of unpopular reforms and perceived elite misconduct has fueled skepticism and frustration, making it harder for leaders to rally public support for future initiatives. Recent scandals involving EU lawmakers have significantly eroded public trust in European institutions. Allegations ranging from harassment to bribery, such as the high-profile Qatargate and Huawei-gate cases, have fueled perceptions of corruption and lack of accountability. Meanwhile, the European Commission's tendency towards secrecy, like conducting major negotiations over text messages without official records, has only heightened skepticism. For many Europeans, these developments suggest that decision-makers are more focused on protecting their own interests than serving the public. This growing distrust is now a central challenge for the EU as it navigates an already turbulent political landscape. The long-standing partnership between the United States and Europe is showing clear signs of strain. Recent statements from American leaders suggest that the U.S. is no longer prioritizing the defense of Europe as it once did. This shift has left the European Union feeling more exposed and uncertain about its security. Without the traditional support from across the Atlantic, the EU now faces the challenge of redefining its role and strengthening its own defense capabilities in an increasingly unpredictable world. The euro is facing a critical test as its underlying weaknesses come to light. With Germany, once the champion of fiscal discipline, now relaxing its own rules, the unity of the Eurozone is under strain. National governments are increasingly taking control over their own monetary policies, moving away from the centralized approach that once defined the European Central Bank. This shift not only exposes deep divisions within the Union, but also raises questions about the future stability of the single currency. As countries prioritize their own interests, the very foundation of the euro is being called into question. Across Europe, governments are taking a more active role in steering credit within their economies. This approach, often called financial repression, involves encouraging or even pressuring pension funds and banks to invest in domestic government bonds rather than seeking higher returns elsewhere. As a result, The traditional unity of the Eurozone's monetary policy is being eroded, with each country prioritizing its own financial stability. This trend signals a quiet shift away from a single, unified financial market toward a patchwork of state-directed credit systems. Over time, these changes could further strain the cohesion of the European Union's economic framework. France is currently facing a period of significant fiscal stress, marked by political gridlock and a rapidly increasing national debt. This instability has led to a surge in bond yields and a downgrade in the country's credit rating, signaling growing concerns among investors. As France is one of the Eurozone's largest economies, these troubles have broader implications, putting pressure on the stability of the entire monetary union. The situation highlights the delicate balance required to maintain confidence in the euro, especially when one member state faces such pronounced challenges. The European Central Bank is caught in a difficult position. If it steps in to rescue France, it could undermine the credibility and stability of the euro, raising questions about fiscal discipline across the union. On the other hand, letting France struggle risks destabilizing the eurozone's second-largest economy, which could trigger wider financial turmoil. This dilemma highlights the structural flaws within the euro project, where a single monetary policy struggles to accommodate vastly different national economies. Ultimately, the ECB's decision will shape not only France's future, but the fate of the entire eurozone. Brussels' approach to the current crisis is less about addressing the root causes and more about preserving its grip on the system. Instead of enacting deep reforms, the EU is rolling out strategies to steer household savings into assets that fit its policy agenda. This includes initiatives like the Savings and Investment Union, which aims to direct personal savings toward EU-approved investments. The underlying goal is to keep capital within the bloc and support projects that align with Brussels' priorities, even if it means sidelining broader economic fixes. In essence, the focus remains on control, not on tackling the structural challenges at the heart of Europe's troubles. The Savings and Investment Union, or SIU, is a new initiative designed to channel European household savings toward projects that align with the European Union's strategic priorities. Instead of letting savings sit idle in bank accounts or flow abroad, the SIU encourages auto-enrollment, meaning workers' pensions and investments are automatically directed into managed funds. These funds are overseen by institutions that support EU goals, such as green energy and infrastructure. The idea is to mobilize the continent's vast pool of private savings to boost growth and innovation within Europe, while still offering individuals the chance to invest for their future. The European Central Bank is advancing its plans for a digital euro, but this move is less about technological progress and more about tightening control over the financial system. With the digital euro, the ECB would have the power to impose strict limits on how much individuals can hold or spend, and even apply negative interest rates directly to accounts. This means your savings could decrease not just from inflation, but from policy decisions made at the central bank. While the digital euro is often presented as a modern solution, its real purpose is to give authorities unprecedented oversight and influence over personal finances. For many, this raises concerns about privacy and the future of financial autonomy in Europe. Programmability in digital currencies means that transactions can be tailored with specific conditions, allowing authorities to control how and when money is spent. In the European Union, this feature is being used to reinforce centralized oversight, with the European Central Bank maintaining significant power over digital euro usage. By enabling conditional payments, the EU can direct funds toward approved sectors or limit spending in certain areas. This level of control is designed to keep capital within the region and align financial flows with policy objectives. However, it also raises important questions about individual autonomy and the balance between innovation and oversight. The gradual decline of the euro is expected to have significant consequences for both markets and individual savers. As national governments regain control over credit and spending, we could see the introduction of capital controls, restricting the movement of money across borders. This shift would mark a departure from the era of a unified European financial market, making it harder for investors to diversify or protect their assets internationally. For savers, this environment could mean limited options and increased vulnerability to policy changes as governments prioritize funding for projects aligned with their own agendas. Ultimately, the landscape for both markets and personal finance in Europe may become more fragmented and less predictable. In the evolving European landscape, government policy is increasingly shaping the financial winners and losers. Companies that align themselves with public spending priorities, such as green energy or infrastructure, are poised to benefit from guaranteed funding and support. Meanwhile, traditional investment strategies, like passive index investing or leveraged financial products, are losing their edge as the market shifts away from free market competition. This new environment means that returns are often assigned by policy decisions rather than earned through innovation or efficiency. As a result, adaptability and alignment with government objectives are becoming crucial for success in Europe's changing economy. As governments across Europe tighten their grip on capital, assets that resist censorship are gaining attention. Gold and Bitcoin stand out as alternatives, offering a way to protect wealth outside traditional financial systems. The concept of self-custody is becoming crucial, since holding assets directly, rather than through banks or custodial platforms, means individuals retain control even as regulations shift. In this environment, the appeal of decentralized and tangible assets grows, especially for those wary of increasing financial oversight. It's a reminder that when capital controls rise, safeguarding your own resources can make all the difference. Europe is experiencing a significant shift in its geopolitical stance, as traditional alliances with the United States become less reliable. Faced with internal divisions and external pressures, European leaders are increasingly turning their attention toward China and other emerging powers. This pivot marks a departure from the era of a unified Western-led Europe, signaling a new approach to international relations. As the geopolitical center of gravity tilts eastward, Europe must navigate a complex landscape, balancing its economic interests with evolving global dynamics. The once solid transatlantic alliance between Europe and the United States is showing clear signs of strain. With Washington's recent volatility and a growing tendency to focus inward, American support can no longer be taken for granted. This shift has left European leaders questioning their security arrangements and long-term strategies. As the U.S. steps back, Europe faces the challenge of redefining its global role and finding new ways to ensure stability and influence on the world stage. The European project stands at a crossroads, facing unprecedented economic and political challenges. Whether the coming reset leads to meaningful reform or deeper turmoil will depend largely on the choices made by Europe's leaders in the months ahead. Their ability to address structural weaknesses, restore public trust, and adapt to a shifting global landscape will shape the continent's future. As uncertainty looms, the actions taken now will determine whether Europe emerges stronger or faces further instability.